I was lounging on the couch, engrossed in a documentary, when a knock on the door jolted me from my comfortable stupor. It was late, and unexpected visitors at this hour usually spelled trouble. I opened the door to find two police officers standing there, their expressions stern but unreadable. "Good evening, sir. Are you Mr. Johnson?" one of them asked. "Yes, that's me." "What is this about?" I replied, a mix of curiosity and concern creeping into my voice. "You are suspected of assaulting your unfaithful wife's lover," the officer said, his tone matter-of-fact. I couldn't help but feel a surge of vindication, even as I feigned surprise. Suppressing a smile, I widened my eyes in mock astonishment and said, "What the hell are you talking about? It's impossible. My wife couldn't cheat on me." The officers exchanged glances, clearly unsure whether to believe my performance. "We're just following up on a report." "We need to ask you a few questions," the other officer said, his voice softer, almost sympathetic. "Of course, come in," I said, stepping aside to let them into the living room. As they took a seat, I mentally prepared myself for the barrage of questions, knowing I had to maintain my facade. After they left, I collapsed back onto the couch, exhaling deeply. I needed to keep my cool, but my mind was racing. This wasn't the first indication of her infidelity, but it was the first time it had come knocking on my door in such an official manner. It all started a few months ago when things began to feel off. My wife, Linda, had always been the type to enjoy attention, but lately, she had become almost addicted to it. Her excuses for late nights and weekend outings had grown increasingly flimsy, and our sex life had dwindled to almost nothing. ID found suspicious texts on her phone, but she always had a ready lie to explain them away. Then, there was Mark. Mark was a new colleague at Linda's office, and from the moment she first mentioned him, I had a bad feeling. He was always calling her for work emergencies at odd hours, and she seemed far too eager to help. The final straw was a photograph I found on her phone, a selfie of the two of them at a bar, far too close for comfort. Despite all the signs, I never confronted her directly. Instead, I bided my time, gathering evidence and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The police visit tonight was unexpected but not unwelcome. It meant the game was afoot, and it was time to play my hand. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the incriminating photos I had saved, my jaw clenching with each image. There she was, my wife, with her lover. I had enough to destroy her lies and shatter the facade she had built around our marriage. But this wasn't just about revenge. It was about regaining control of my life. I knew the next steps would be tricky, but I was ready. Linda had no idea what was coming, and that's exactly how I wanted it. The morning after the police visit, I found myself pacing the living room, replaying the events in my head. Linda had already left for work, her usual bubbly self, completely unaware of the storm brewing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had to be done soon. This charade had gone on long enough. I decided to take a day off from work, calling in sick with a fabricated stomach bug. I needed time to think, to plan. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, spreading out all the evidence I had gathered: text messages, photos, and a few receipts from fancy dinners she had claimed were work events. As I sifted through the damning evidence, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my friend, Mike. He was one of the few people I had confided in about my suspicions. "Hey man, how's it going? Any updates on Linda?" I hesitated before replying. Mike had always been a rock, someone I could rely on for advice, but I didn't want to burden him too much with my problems. Morning. "Yeah, actually something big happened last night. The police came by. Apparently her lover reported me for assault. I didn't touch the guy, but it's clear they were trying to stir up trouble." The response was almost immediate. "No way! What are you going to do?" I stared at the screen, contemplating my next move. I'm not sure yet, thinking about confronting her tonight. I've got all the evidence ready. Be careful, dude. She's obviously capable of lying. Who knows what she'll do when confronted? Mike was right. I needed to be cautious, but I also needed to see her reaction, to hear her lies crumble under the weight of the truth. That evening, Linda came home, her heels clicking against the wooden floor as she entered the house. I watched her from the kitchen, her smile faltering slightly when she saw me standing there, arms crossed. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice a little too cheerful. "How was your day?" I didn't answer right away, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. Finally, I spoke, my tone icy. "We need to talk." Linda's smile vanished, replaced by a wary expression. "What's wrong?" I gestured to the table where all the evidence was laid out. "This," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "All of this." Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of the incriminating photos, the text messages, the receipts. For a moment, she seemed at a loss for words, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "What is this?" she finally managed to say, her voice shaking. "This is proof, Linda. Proof that you've been lying to me, proof that you've been cheating on me with Mark." She staggered back, one hand clutching her chest. I can explain," she stammered, but I cut her off. "Don't to bother. I've heard enough lies already." For a moment she looked like she might break down, but then, as if a switch had been flipped, her expression hardened. "You've been spying on me? Going through my things?" Her sudden defiance caught me off guard. "I had to. You've been lying to my face for months, Linda." She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You don't understand. Mark and I, it is complicated." "Complicated? You are my wife. There's nothing complicated about that." She turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." "Well, you did," I said, my voice breaking. "And now it's over." Linda whirled around, tears streaming down her face. "Please, let's talk about this. We can work it out. I love you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to believe her, to think that we could somehow salvage our marriage, but the betrayal was too deep, the wound too raw. "I don't think I can ever trust you again," I said quietly. "I need you to leave. Go stay with a friend or something. I need time to think." For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me with a mixture of desperation and sorrow. Then, slowly, she nodded and walked upstairs to pack a bag. I watched her go, feeling a strange mix of relief and heartache. When she finally left, the house felt eerily quiet. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling from the confrontation. It wasn't over yet. There were still questions to be answered, still emotions to be dealt with. But for now, I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life. The silence in the house was both a relief and a torment. With Linda gone, I had time to process everything, but the quiet also left me alone with my thoughts, which were far from pleasant. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the raw wound of her infidelity festering in my mind. The next step was clear. I needed more answers. The following morning, I decided to dig deeper into Linda S.'s deceit. I called Mike and asked if he could help me out. Mike, ever the loyal friend, agreed without hesitation. "Meet me at the coffee shop around the corner," he said. "We'll figure this out together." I arrived at the coffee shop to find Mike already there, a concerned look on his face. We ordered our coffees and found a quiet corner to talk. "So what's the plan?" Mike asked, leaning forward. "I need to find out more about this Mark guy," I said. "There's got to be something that can help me understand how deep this goes." Mike nodded. "I can do some digging on social media, maybe check out his LinkedIn profile, see if there is anything suspicious. You could try talking to some of Linda S.'s co-workers. Maybe they know more about this affair. It was a good plan." We split up, each taking our respective tasks. I decided to start with Linda S.'s office. I knew a few of her co-workers from company events, and I hoped they might be willing to talk. I drove to Linda S.'s workplace and parked a block away, not wanting to attract any attention. As I walked into the lobby, I spotted Jane, one of Linda S.'s friends, coming out of the elevator. "Hey, Jane," I called out, trying to sound casual. "Got a minute?" Jane looked surprised to see me, but smiled politely. "Sure, what's up?" We found a quiet spot in the corner of the lobby, and I got straight to the point. "Jane, I need to ask you something about Linda and Mark." Her expression shifted from polite curiosity to guarded concern. "What about them?" "I found out about their affair," I said bluntly. "I need to know if anyone else in the office knew or if there were any signs I might have missed." Jane's eyes widened, and she glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Wow, I'm so sorry you're going through this. To be honest, there were rumors. Mark is a bit of a player, and a few people noticed he and Linda were close. But I didn't know for sure. Did you ever see them together outside of work? Jane hesitated, then nodded. A few times. They grabbed drinks after work, but it always seemed professional. At least, that is what I thought. I thanked Jane for her honesty and left, feeling both frustrated and vindicated. The pieces were starting to come together, but there was still so much I didn't know. Back at the coffee shop, I met up with Mike again. He had a determined look on his face, which meant he had found something. "You won to believe this," he said, sliding his phone across the table. Mark has a history of this kind of behavior. There are comments on his LinkedIn and social media from previous coworkers hinting at affairs and inappropriate relationships. I scrolled through the comments, my anger growing with each revelation. This guy was a serial cheater, and Linda had fallen right into his trap. "That bastard," I muttered. "He's been playing her this whole time." Mike nodded. "And it gets worse. I found a few photos of him with other women, taken around the same time he was seeing Linda. He's not just a cheater, he is a liar and a manipulator." Armed with this new information, I felt a surge of determination. It was time to confront Linda again, this time with the full extent of her lover-esque betrayal. That evening, I called Linda and asked her to come over. She sounded hesitant, but agreed. When she arrived, she looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept since our last confrontation. "Why did you want to see me?" she asked, her voice wary. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation. "I've been doing some digging, Linda. I know about Mark S.'s history, his pattern of cheating and manipulating women. Did you know he has been seeing other women while he was with you?" Linda S.'s face paled, and she shook her head. "No, that is not possible. He told me he loved me." "Take a look at this," I said, handing her my phone with the incriminating photos and comments. "He's been playing you, Linda. You weren't the only one." She stared at the screen, her eyes filling with tears. I had no idea. I thought he cared about me." "Well, he doesn't, I said, my voice harsh. "He used you just like he used all those other women, and you threw away our marriage for him." Linda broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, but the anger and betrayal were still too fresh. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I've made such a mess of everything." "Yeah, you have," I said, my voice softening slightly. "But now you need to face the consequences. We were done, Linda. I can stay married to someone who betrayed me like this." She nodded, wiping away her tears. "I understand. I'll pack my things and leave." As she went upstairs to gather her belongings, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. The woman I had loved, the woman I had shared my life with, was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized. Linda left that night, and the house was quiet once more. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least now I had the truth. And with that truth, I could finally begin to heal. With Linda gone, I began the process of rebuilding my life from the ashes of our shattered marriage. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, a mixture of relief, anger, and profound sadness. It felt like I was living in a fog, every memory of our life together tainted by her betrayal. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I needed to make sure the divorce proceedings were swift and fair. I gathered all the evidence I had collected, including the photos, texts, and now the information about Mark S.'s sordid history. The lawyer assured me that with such compelling evidence, things would likely go in my favor. Despite everything, I still had moments where I missed Linda. The house felt empty without her. Every room was filled with memories, both good and bad, and it was hard to separate the two. But I knew this was for the best. I had to keep moving forward. A few days later, I received a call from Linda. Her voice was shaky, filled with regret. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. "Sure, come by tomorrow." When she arrived, she looked like a shadow of her former self, eyes puffy from crying, hair disheveled. We sat in the living room, the tension thick between us. "I've been staying with a friend," she began. "I have had a lot of time to think, and I realize now how badly I screwed up. I am so sorry, truly. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it." I nodded, letting her speak. "What do you want, Linda?" I want to try to make things right, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know I can undo what I have done, but maybe we can find a way to move past this. I love you and I don't want to lose you. Her words stung, but they also felt hollow. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. I can't trust you anymore, Linda. You lied to me for months. You betrayed me in the worst way possible. I know, she said, tears streaming down her face. But people make mistakes. Can we at least try to fix this? I sighed, feeling a pang of sympathy despite everything. I don't know if I can. You hurt me deeply. It's not just about the affair, it is about the lies, the deceit. You looked me in the eyes and lied over and over again. Linda sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I hate myself for what I've done. Please, just give me a chance to make it up to you. I need time, I said finally. Time to think, to heal. Right now, I just can't see a way forward for us. Maybe in the future, but not now. She nodded, accepting my words. I understand. I'll respect your space. But please, if there's even a small part of you that thinks we can fix this, let me know. As she left, I felt a strange sense of closure. I had said what needed to be said, and now it was up to me to decide my path forward. I wasn't sure what the future held, but at least now I had control over my life again. In the weeks that followed, I focused on myself. I threw myself into work, went to the gym, and even picked up some old hobbies I had neglected. It felt good to do things for myself, to reclaim my independence. Mike was a constant support, always there to lend an ear or a shoulder to lean on. One evening, I decided to check in on Mark. I wanted to see if he had faced any consequences for his actions. A quick search revealed that he had been fired from his job. The company had a strict policy against workplace relationships, especially those that caused such turmoil. It was a small victory, but it felt good to know that he was facing repercussions. As for Linda, she continued to text me, asking for updates, trying to gauge if there was any hope for us. I kept my responses brief, not wanting to give her false hope, but also not wanting to be cruel. I needed time, and she had to respect that. A month passed, and I began to feel like myself again. The pain was still there, but it was no longer consuming me. I had started seeing a therapist, which helped immensely. Talking through my feelings, understanding the depth of my hurt, and learning how to cope with the betrayal made a world of difference. One day, as I was leaving the therapist's office, I received a call from my lawyer. Good news, she said. The divorce papers are ready. We just need you to sign them. I felt a surge of mixed emotions. This was the final step, the official end of my marriage. But it also marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where I could rebuild my life on my terms. That evening, I met with Linda to sign the papers. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had confronted her with the evidence of her affair. It felt fitting to end things here. As we signed the documents, there was a heavy silence between us. When we were done, Linda looked at me with tear-filled eyes. I am truly sorry, she said. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I nodded, feeling a sense of finality. I hope you find what you're looking for, Linda. Take care. With that, she left, and I was alone once more. But this time, the emptiness felt different. It was a blank slate, a chance to start anew. The ink on the divorce papers had barely dried when I began to feel the weight of everything lifting off my shoulders. It was a strange sensation, liberating yet daunting. My life had been so intertwined with Linda S. that I had almost forgotten what it was like to live solely for myself. But now I had the opportunity to rediscover who I was and what I wanted. Mike had been a constant pillar of support throughout this entire ordeal, and I owed him more than a few drinks. We decided to meet up at our favorite bar to celebrate the new chapter of my life. As I walked into the bar, the familiar buzz of chatter and clinking glasses welcomed me. Mike was already there, a beer in hand and a grin on his face. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass as I sat down. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my glass against his. We spent the evening reminiscing about old times and talking about the future. Mike was excited to see me moving on and encouraged me to embrace the freedom I now had. "You should start dating again," he suggested, with a mischievous glint in his eye. "There are plenty of fish in the sea, my friend," I laughed, shaking my head. "I'm not sure I am ready for that just yet. I need to focus on myself first." "Fair enough," Mike said, nodding. "But don't to close yourself off completely. You never know what might happen." His words stuck with me as I left the bar that night. Dating seemed like a distant concept, but the idea of opening myself up to new possibilities was intriguing. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into activities that I had neglected during my marriage. I picked up my old guitar and started playing again, finding solace in the familiar chords. I also joined a local hiking group, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. One weekend, the hiking group planned a trip to a nearby mountain. The fresh air and physical exertion were exactly what I needed. As we reached the summit, the view was breathtaking. The vast expanse of nature stretched out before me, a reminder of how much beauty there was in the world, even after so much pain. During the hike, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Emily. She was outgoing and had a contagious enthusiasm for life. We chatted about everything from our favorite hiking trails to our favorite books. There was an ease in our conversation that I hadn't felt in a long time. By the end of the hike, we exchanged numbers, promising to meet up for coffee sometime. It wasn't a date, not really, but it was a step towards opening myself up again. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and I continued to hang out. We went on more hikes, grabbed coffee, and even attended a local music festival. She was easy to talk to and didn't pressure me to move faster than I was comfortable with. It was refreshing. One evening, after a particularly long hike, we sat on a bench overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over everything. Emily turned to me, her eyes thoughtful. "You know, I've really enjoyed getting to know you," she said. "But I also understand if you are not ready for anything serious." I appreciated her honesty and openness. "I've enjoyed getting to know you too, Emily. And while I'm still healing, I am also open to seeing where this goes." She smiled and we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset. It was a simple moment, but it felt significant. For the first time since the divorce, I felt hopeful about the future. As the weeks passed, my relationship with Emily continued to grow. It wasn't without its challenges. I had my moments of doubt and insecurity, but she was patient and understanding. We took things slow, allowing our connection to develop naturally. Meanwhile, Linda reached out a few times, mostly to check in and see how I was doing. Our conversations were brief and civil. She seemed to be genuinely remorseful, but I kept my distance. I had moved on, and I needed to focus on my new life. One afternoon, as I was tidying up the house, I came across an old photo album. Flipping through the pages, I saw pictures of Linda and me during happier times. The memories were bittersweet, but I realized that those moments were a part of my story. They had shaped who I was, and while the ending was painful, it didn't erase the good times we had shared. I decided to put the album away, not out of anger or regret, but as a way of acknowledging the past and making room for the future. It was time to fully embrace my independence and the possibilities that lay ahead. A few months later, Emily and I attended a friend's wedding together. It was a beautiful ceremony, filled with love and joy. As we danced and laughed with the other guests, I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't felt in years. At one point, Emily looked at me, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "I'm glad we met," she said softly. "Me too," I replied, squeezing her hand. "Me too." It wasn't just about finding someone new. It was about rediscovering myself, learning to trust again, and realizing that life could be beautiful even after the darkest of times. As my relationship with Emily deepened, I found myself experiencing a range of emotions that I hadn't felt in a long time. Happiness, excitement, and even a sense of peace began to replace the bitterness and anger that had consumed me for so long. Emily and I had built something special, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly happy. One evening, as we were having dinner at a cozy little restaurant downtown, Emily looked at me with a serious expression. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of apprehension and determination. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She took a deep breath. "I've been offered a job in another city. It's a fantastic opportunity, and I have been considering it for a while." My heart sank. "How far away is it?" "It's on the West Coast," she replied, looking down at her hands. "But it is a dream job, and I don't want to pass it up." The news hit me like a ton of bricks. Just when things were starting to feel normal again, another unexpected turn was thrown my way. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. "Have you decided if you're going to take it?" She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I think I have to. It's everything I've worked for, but it doesn't mean I want to lose you." The sincerity in her voice was palpable, and I knew she was struggling with the decision. "I understand," I said quietly. "This is your dream, and you should go for it. We can figure out the rest." Emily reached across the table and took my hand. "Long distance isn't easy, but I'm willing to try if you are. I don't want to lose what we have." The thought of being apart was painful, but I didn't want to stand in the way of her dreams. "We'll make it work," I said, squeezing her hand. "We'll find a way." The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparations for Emily's move. We spent as much time together as possible, making the most of every moment. As her departure date approached, the reality of the situation began to sink in. I was happy for her, but the prospect of being apart was daunting. The day Emily left was bittersweet. We stood in the airport terminal, holding each other tightly. "I'll miss you every day," she whispered. "I'll miss you too," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. "But this isn't goodbye. We'll talk every day and I'll visit as often as I can." She smiled through her tears. "I love you. I love you too," I said, kissing her gently. "Now go. Show them what you're made of." As I watched her walk away, I felt a mixture of pride and sadness. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew we had a strong foundation. We had faced challenges before, and we would face this one together. The first few weeks of long distance were tough. We talked on the phone every day and video chatted as much as possible, but it wasn't the same as being together. I threw myself into work and hobbies to keep busy, but there were moments when the loneliness crept in. One evening, as I was scrolling through social media, I saw a post from Linda. It was a photo of her with some friends looking happy and carefree. Seeing her like that brought back a flood of memories and emotions. I had moved on, but the scars were still there. A few days later, I received a text from Linda. "Can we meet up for coffee? There's something I want to talk about." I hesitated before replying. Part of me didn't want to open that door again, but another part was curious. "Sure," I typed. "Let us meet at the usual place." When I arrived at the coffee shop, Linda was already there, looking nervous. I sat down across from her and we exchanged pleasantries. After a few moments of awkward silence, she finally spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, her voice wavering. "And I realize now how much I hurt you. I know I can undo the past, but I wanted to apologize truly." Her words were sincere, and I could see the regret in her eyes. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that. I also wanted to tell you that I am moving," she continued. "I got a job offer in another state, and I think it's time for a fresh start." The news took me by surprise, but it made sense. We both needed to move on, and perhaps this was the closure we both needed. "I think that's a good idea," I said. "I wish you the best." Linda smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I wish you the best too. You deserve to be happy." We said our goodbyes, and as I walked away, I felt a sense of finality. The chapter with Linda was truly closed, and it was time to focus on the future. With both Linda and Emily moving on to new chapters in their lives, I found myself at a crossroads. The distance with Emily was challenging, but we were committed to making it work. We planned visits, and each time we saw each other, it reaffirmed our connection. One evening, as I was packing for a trip to visit Emily, I received a call from her. "I have some news," she said, excitement in her voice. "I'm coming back for a visit next month. I've missed you so much." "I've missed you too," I said, feeling a rush of happiness. "I can't wait to see you." As we continued to talk, I realized how much stronger our relationship had become. The distance had tested us, but it had also brought us closer together. We had faced the unexpected turns, and we were still standing strong. Life was unpredictable, filled with twists and turns, but I had learned to navigate them. With Emily by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Emily's visit was just around the corner, and I was counting down the days. The anticipation of seeing her again filled me with a sense of joy and excitement that I hadn't felt in a long time. The past few months had been a whirlwind, but through it all, my connection with Emily had only grown stronger. The day of her arrival, I waited at the airport with a mixture of nerves and excitement. When I finally saw her walking through the terminal, her face lighting up as she spotted me, I felt a surge of happiness. We embraced tightly, neither of us wanting to let go. "I've missed you so much," Emily said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "I've missed you too," I replied, pulling back to look at her. "You have no idea how good it is to see you." We spent the next few days exploring the city, revisiting our favorite spots and simply enjoying each other's company. It felt like no time had passed at all, and yet our bond had deepened. One evening, as we sat on the porch of my house watching the sunset, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I have been thinking," she said slowly. "This long-distance thing, it's hard. But being here with you, it feels right. I don't want to be apart anymore." My heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with determination. "I want to move back. I've already talked to my boss, and they are willing to let me work remotely most of the time. I can make trips to the office when needed, but I want to be here with you." The relief and joy that washed over me were indescribable. "Are you sure?" "That is a big decision. I've never been more sure of anything," she said, smiling. "I love you, and I want to build a life together." We celebrated the decision with a bottle of wine and spent the evening talking about our future. It felt like the fresh start I had been waiting for, a chance to build something beautiful from the ashes of my past. A few weeks later, Emily made the move official. We found a charming apartment in the city, a place that felt like home from the moment we walked in. The process of moving and settling in was hectic, but having Emily by my side made it all worthwhile. As we unpacked boxes and set up our new home, I felt a sense of contentment that I hadn't felt in years. The dark days of betrayal and heartbreak were behind me, replaced by the warmth and love of a new beginning. One evening, as we sat on the couch, surrounded by the cozy chaos of our half-unpacked apartment, Emily turned to me with a mischievous grin. "I have a surprise for you." "Oh, what's that?" I asked, curious. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "Open it." Inside was a pair of concert tickets for one of my favorite bands. "No way! How did you get these?" "I have my ways," she said with a wink. "I thought it would be a fun way to celebrate our new life together." The night of the concert was magical. We danced, sang along to our favorite songs, and lost ourselves in the music. It felt like the perfect celebration of everything we had been through and everything we had to look forward to. As we walked home that night, hand in hand, I realized how much had changed in such a short time. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined me. I had found love again, and with it, a sense of hope and happiness that I had thought was lost forever. Months passed, and our life together settled into a comfortable rhythm. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying out new recipes, and simply enjoying each other's company. The scars of my past were healing, and each day with Emily felt like a step forward. One afternoon, as we were walking through a park, Emily stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with emotion. "I am pregnant." For a moment, I was stunned into silence. Then, a rush of joy and excitement filled me. "Are you serious? That is incredible!" She nodded, tears of happiness in her eyes. "I know it's a lot to take in, but I couldn't be happier. I want to build a family with you." I pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling overwhelmed with love and gratitude. I want that too, more than anything. As we walked home, hand in hand, I felt a sense of completeness that I had never experienced before. The future was bright, filled with endless possibilities, and I was ready to face it all with Emily by my side. Life had thrown many unexpected turns my way, but I had come out stronger on the other side. With Emily and our future child, I knew that the best was yet to come. The news of Emily's pregnancy brought a whirlwind of emotions and changes into our lives. As the reality of becoming a parent sank in, I felt a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and profound joy. Emily and I spent countless evenings discussing our plans, dreams, and hopes for our future family. We decided to move to a larger home to accommodate our growing family. The search for the perfect house was both exhilarating and exhausting, but we eventually found a beautiful place in a quiet neighborhood. It had a big backyard, perfect for future playdates and family gatherings. One sunny Saturday, as we unpacked boxes in our new home, Emily paused and placed a hand on her growing belly. "Can you believe it? This is really happening." I smiled, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "It's surreal, isn't it? But it's also amazing. I can't wait to meet our little one." As the months passed, we settled into our new home and began preparing for the baby's arrival. We painted the nursery a soft, soothing color and filled it with everything our child would need. Emily glowed with happiness, and seeing her so content filled me with a deep sense of peace. One evening, as we were assembling the crib, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about the past? About Linda?" The question caught me off guard. It had been months since I had last spoken to Linda, and while the pain of her betrayal had faded, the memories were still there. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not as much as I used to." "Why do you ask?" She sighed, tightening a screw on the crib. "I just wonder if you've found closure, if you're truly at peace with everything that happened." I considered her words carefully. "I think I am. It wasn't easy, but I've moved on, and being with you, starting this new chapter, has helped me heal more than anything." Emily smiled, reaching out to squeeze my hand. "I'm glad. I just want to make sure you're okay." "I am," I said, kissing her forehead. "And I am more than okay knowing we are about to start a family together." As Emily's due date approached, our excitement grew. We attended prenatal classes, read parenting books, and talked endlessly about our hopes for our child. The support from our friends and family was overwhelming, and it made us feel even more prepared for the journey ahead. One night, as we were lying in bed, Emily suddenly gasped and grabbed my hand. "I think it's time," she said, her voice filled with both excitement and nervousness. My heart raced as I quickly grabbed the hospital bag we had prepared. "Let's go meet our baby," I said, helping her to the car. The drive to the hospital was a blur, filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Emily's contractions grew stronger, and by the time we arrived, I was practically sprinting to get her to the delivery room. Hours later, after a whirlwind of emotions and intense moments, our baby girl was born. Holding her for the first time was the most incredible experience of my life. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I felt an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness. Emily looked at me, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "She's perfect." "She is," I agreed, my voice choked with emotion. "You are amazing, Emily. I love you so much." "I love you too," she said, her eyes shining with happiness. The days that followed were a mix of exhaustion and bliss. We brought our baby girl home, and our lives changed in the most beautiful way possible. Every cry, every smile, every little movement filled us with wonder and joy. One evening, as we sat on the porch, our baby girl asleep in Emily's arms, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been long and filled with unexpected turns, but it had led me to this moment, surrounded by love and happiness. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with love. "We are going to be okay, aren't we?" I smiled, reaching out to take her hand. "More than okay. We're going to be amazing. This is just the beginning." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our new home, I knew that our future was bright. We had faced the challenges, overcome the obstacles, and come out stronger on the other side. With Emily and our beautiful daughter by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The arrival of our baby girl, whom we named Sophie, brought a new rhythm to our lives. The days were filled with feedings, diaper changes, and sleepless nights, but every moment was worth it. Emily and I quickly found our groove as parents, supporting each other through the challenges and celebrating the small victories. One evening, a few weeks after Sophie's birth, I found myself alone with her for the first time while Emily took a much-needed nap. I sat in the rocking chair, cradling Sophie in my arms, marveling at how tiny and perfect she was. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at me with a curious expression. "Hey there, little one," I whispered, gently rocking back and forth. "You have no idea how much you've changed our lives." As I gazed at her, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The pain and betrayal of the past seemed like a distant memory, overshadowed by the joy and love that Sophie had brought into our lives. Emily emerged from the bedroom, looking refreshed. She smiled as she saw us. "How are my two favorite people doing?" "We are doing great," I replied, smiling back. "Sophie is a little angel." Emily joined us, sitting on the arm of the chair and stroking Sophie's head. "I can't believe how lucky we are," she said softly. "She's perfect." We spent the next few months settling into our new roles as parents. There were sleepless nights and moments of doubt, but we tackled everything together. Emily's parents visited often, offering their support and showering Sophie with love. My parents, who lived a bit further away, came whenever they could, eager to spend time with their granddaughter. One afternoon, while Emily was out grocery shopping, I decided to check my email. Among the usual messages was one from Linda. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it, unsure of what to expect. The email was brief, but sincere. "Hi, I hope you and Emily are doing well. I heard about Sophie's birth from a mutual friend. Congratulations. I am genuinely happy for you both. I know things ended badly between us, but I wanted to reach out and apologize once more for everything. I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I am working on becoming a better person. Wishing you all the best, Linda." I stared at the screen for a moment, absorbing her words. It was the first time I had heard from Linda since the divorce was finalized. Her message felt genuine, and I appreciated her reaching out. It reminded me that people could change and grow just as I had. I decided to reply, keeping my response short but kind. "Hi, Linda. Thank you for your message, and congratulations. Sophie is a blessing, and we are incredibly happy. I appreciate your apology and wish you all the best in your journey. Take care, your name." After sending the email, I felt a sense of closure. Linda's acknowledgement of her past mistakes and her efforts to change were reassuring. It was another step toward healing and moving forward. As the months passed, Sophie continued to grow and develop, bringing endless joy to our lives. Her first smile, her first laugh, and her first attempts at crawling were moments we cherished. Emily and I found ourselves falling more in love with each other as we navigated the challenges of parenthood together. One evening, as we were putting Sophie to bed, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe it's time for us to start planning our wedding." I looked at her, surprised but delighted. "Really? I thought we'd wait a bit longer." She smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Why wait? We're already a family, and I want to make it official. Let us celebrate our love and commitment with the people we care about." The idea filled me with excitement. I love that. Let us do it. We began planning our wedding, choosing a date for the following spring. The preparations were a welcome distraction from the everyday stresses of life, and it brought us even closer together. We decided on an intimate ceremony with close friends and family, a celebration of our journey and the love that had brought us to this point. The day of our wedding arrived, and it was everything we had hoped for. The sun shone brightly as we exchanged vows in a beautiful garden, surrounded by the people who had supported us through thick and thin. Sophie, dressed in a tiny white dress, stole the show with her infectious giggles and bright smiles. As I stood at the altar, holding Emily's hands, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. We had faced so many challenges, but we had come out stronger on the other side. Our love had been tested and had only grown deeper. "I promise to love you, support you, and cherish every moment we share," I said, looking into Emily's eyes. "You've brought so much joy into my life, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for us." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she smiled, I promise to stand by your side through every challenge and triumph. You've shown me what true love is, and I am so grateful for you and for Sophie. I can't wait to continue this journey together. After the ceremony, we celebrated with our loved ones, dancing and laughing late into the night. As I held Emily in my arms, watching Sophie being passed around by doting grandparents and friends, I knew that we had created something truly special. Life was full of unexpected turns, but with Emily and Sophie by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came our way. Our journey was just beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us. Our wedding day was perfect, filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future. Emily, Sophie, and I had formed a strong and unbreakable bond, and I felt like I was on top of the world. Little did I know that life had one more curveball to throw our way. A few months after the wedding, Emily started to feel unusually tired. At first, we attributed it to the demands of parenthood and her work. But when she began experiencing severe headaches and dizzy spells, we knew something was wrong. We visited the doctor, and after a series of tests, we received the news that would change our lives forever. Emily was diagnosed with a brain tumor. The world seemed to come crashing down around us as the doctor explained the severity of the situation and the treatment options available. As we sat in the Dr. S. office, holding hands tightly, Emily looked at me with tears in her eyes. "We're going to get through this, right?" I squeezed her hand, my voice shaking. "Yes, we are. We'll fight this together." The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits, consultations, and difficult decisions. Emily underwent surgery to remove as much of the tumor as possible, followed by radiation and chemotherapy. It was a grueling process, but she faced it with incredible strength and determination. During this time, our friends and family rallied around us, providing support in ways we never expected. Mike was a constant presence, helping with Sophie and offering a shoulder to lean on. Emily's parents moved in temporarily to help with the day-to-day tasks, allowing me to focus on Emily and her treatment. One evening, as I sat by Emily's hospital bed watching her sleep, I felt a deep sense of fear and helplessness. The woman I loved, who had given me so much joy and hope, was fighting for her life. But amidst the fear, there was also a profound sense of determination. We had overcome so much together, and we would overcome this too. Emily's treatment took its toll on her physically, but her spirit remained unbroken. Despite the pain and exhaustion, she always found the strength to smile for Sophie, to play with her, and to reassure me that everything would be okay. One night, after a particularly challenging day, Emily and I sat on the porch, the cool evening air providing a brief respite from the heat of summer. Sophie was asleep inside, and the world seemed quiet and still. Emily rested her head on my shoulder, her voice soft but resolute. "I know this is hard, but I'm not giving up. I have too much to live for. We have too much to live for." I kissed the top of her head, my heart swelling with love and admiration. "You are the strongest person I know. We are going to get through this, one day at a time." As the months passed, Emily's condition began to improve. The treatments were working, and the tumor was shrinking. It was a long and arduous journey, but we faced it together, one step at a time. Throughout it all, Sophie was a constant source of joy and light. Her laughter and innocence reminded us of the beauty of life and the importance of fighting for the future we wanted for our family. Emily and I cherished every moment with her, finding strength in her smiles and in each other. One sunny afternoon, as we watched Sophie take her first steps in the backyard, I felt a surge of hope. Emily, looking stronger and more vibrant, cheered her on. Her eyes filled with pride and love. It was a simple moment, but it was a victory, a testament to the strength of our love and our determination to overcome any obstacle. As Emily's health continued to improve, we began to rebuild our lives, finding a new sense of normalcy. The experience had brought us even closer, deepening our bond and reinforcing our commitment to each other and to our family. On the anniversary of Emily's diagnosis, we decided to celebrate life and the progress we had made. We invited our friends and family over for a barbecue, filling our home with laughter, love, and gratitude. As we stood together, surrounded by the people who had supported us through the darkest of times, Emily raised her glass. "To love, to resilience, and to the strength that we find in each other. We've faced the unimaginable, but we've come out stronger. Here's to many more years of happiness and health. We clinked glasses, toasting to the journey we had taken and the bright future that lay ahead. In that moment, I realized that life would always have its challenges, but with Emily and Sophie by my side, I could face anything. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I held Emily close, feeling a deep sense of peace. We had been through so much, but we had emerged stronger, more united, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. Emily looked up at me, her eyes shining with love. "Thank you for never giving up on us." I smiled, kissing her gently. "Thank you for being my rock. I love you, Emily. Always, always," she echoed, resting her head against my chest. As we stood there, watching Sophie play with her grandparents, I knew that we had created something truly special, a love that could withstand anything, a family bound by unbreakable ties, and a future filled with endless possibilities. And so our journey continued, one day at a time, with love, hope, and the unwavering belief that together we could conquer anything.